And representing, hi Tyler, representing comedy sports, he is, as his Twitter succinctly explains, a comedian, author of the book Plays Well With Others, father, and piano player. Ladies and gentlemen, Les McGahee! There he is. All right. So, can you guys... I think, Les, you're a little bit shorter because of the hair, so you call this in the air. I'm flipping the wristband. Can you call up the marked, you have to say the marked up white part, or the only wrinkled dimpled part?
Dimple!
Let's go to the Jennings. It's the marked up white part. Tyler, would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tyler Stoddard Smith.
Oldest living Alamo widow tells all, y'all. I just celebrated my 195th birthday and it was utterly forgettable. Not even a digestive biscuit or a card with a goddamn monkey on it. I've got a waddle the size of the Reichstag. I haven't held a man since the day they shot McKinley. And even the orderlies here sometimes mistake me for an old fire hydrant. And yes, I do get asked a lot of questions about what it was like at the Alamo. But I typically just urinate on my interrogators and mumble something about a rent-a-car. It's easier that way. Well, you want blood? You got it. I'm ready to tell you the truth about those mythical 2 weeks. Spring break 36 at the Alamo. Now, we're all familiar with the debauch known as South Padre Island. And it was no different when I was a young woman. Except that it was in Mexico, so you could get painkillers off the rack for a song. Well, after a grueling first semester, my friend Samantha and I decided we'd have ourselves a little adventure au sur. We were none too keen on the prospect of settling down with some old bore, only to get hooked on laudanum and dive consumption before we turned 30. No, we wanted to live, y'all. Well, fly my fanny up to heaven. Somewhere along the way, if we didn't take a wrong turn and find ourselves headed straight toward San Antonio de Bejar, toward history. It was a rough and tumble place, but today it's just called San Antonio and has all the perks, like a river walk and a Hard Rock Cafe where you can see Elvis's karate gear. But for 2 sheltered debutantes, it was sobering. People were also fleeing town in fear of an influx by some Mexican army. They said, your best bet for action is the Alamo. Strange name for a club, we thought. The first thing Sammy and I thought upon entering Club Alamo was, what a sausage fest. Just dudes and oats and mud and a cannon. A bunch of frustrated boys saying things like, you can piss off and I'll go to Texas. No, wait. I said, you can all go to hell and I'll be in Texas. Oh, whatever it was, I'll bet they put it on a belt buckle someday. We'd never been with such rugged, sexually frustrated older men before. Sammy immediately sauntered off with a Frenchman named Rudy, who wore one of those shirts seen on the lower species of spring breakers that reads, who farted? And half the shirt is like burned away, as if somehow the fart did it. As for me, forget about it. By mid-afternoon, I had scanned with James Bowie and the Taylor Brothers. I'm not usually that indiscreet, but I'm also not usually that drunk. Now, I know a lot of people out there think the Alamo caper was all fun and games. And it was for the most part, What with Crockett and hit that crazy coonskin tickler and Bowie with that huge knife. But you can always count on Bill Travis to be dead serious. I said, Bill, you are 26, you're single, you're in Mexico, lighten up for Christ's sakes. But he'd just go on writing his letters. I could tell he fancied me. I got the impression Bill wanted to throw a special party for me. You know, impress me. Well, one morning I watched as he drew a line in the sand and seemed to ask, all right, now who's coming to this damn party? And do you want to know what? Everybody crossed that line except for that no-good Frenchman with the fart shirt, Rudy. He left Sammy with nothing, too. At one point, I appealed to Travis just to let the Mexicans in. You know how Latinos love to dance, I reminded him. But he was having none of it. Sure, it would be crowded, but there's plenty of space to park, and people will use the proper facilities. Nobody's going to pee on the Alamo. Until about 150 years later, when Ozzy Osbourne would, in a show of solidarity with Mexican-American nation building and late-stage alcoholism. Well, I will not stand for bigotry, so I gave the Mexicans VIP passes, keys, and said it really wasn't that crowded inside, and if they were going to be around, I'd love it if they came and partied. In the meantime, Travis and I would talk every night under the moonlight, dodging flying shrapnel. We talked about how life could be so ephemeral, how every moment should be seized upon with primal vigor. Then after some heavy petting, we decided to get married. The night of the 5th, Crockett, Bowie, the very jealous Anderson brothers, and a small circle of other intimates gathered as witnesses to the union between Travis and me. James Bowie read from a pamphlet on genital herpes, while Pachelbel was screeched out by 2 out-of-tune imbeciles on the fiddle. Then Bill told me to wait in the basement, that he had to have a quick chat with the men. Typical. I was in and out of a boozy snooze when I woke with the sound of fireworks. Hey, I called out. More fireworks. They've started the party without me. Hey guys, I'm in here. There's my party going on right outside, and here I am locked in a dingy basement while my husband whoops it outside like a Valkyrie with his buddies. Well, after what seemed like an eternity of merrymaking, I heard the argot of the Alamo club-goers slowly go from English to Spanish. Well, good, I thought. At least the Mexicans made it in. I tried mightily and finally managed to pry open the door of the basement leading to the dance floor. When the dust settled, I finally saw what these apes were capable of. What a dump! This party had got out of hand, y'all. I looked around and most of the Texans were passed out. A lot of Mexicans were too. I tried to wake Bill, but he got so liquored he passed out drunk with a bayonet up his back end, right next to my friend Sammy, who didn't look much better. I should have stayed in New Orleans, gotten hooked on laudanum in the French Quarter like a normal person. I left Bill and Samantha where they were to think about what they'd done. And, representing myself as an old fire hydrant, I gingerly made my way toward home. I thought I'd try to hit one last club before I chalked up my whole trip to a wash. San Jacinto, they called it. It was a problem with the Mexicans again. On my way home, I heard a great ruckus and shouts of, "Remember the Alamo!" Remember the Alamo? Girl, I would rather forget the motherfucker.
Stoddard Smith! Well, coming in at 7 minutes and 49 seconds. He suffered the wristband, but little else. Ladies and gentlemen, Les McGahee, the final reader of the night.